You guys are doing great. I hope you're starting to feel more confident with digging in the scriptures, right? Digging in, and trying to ferret out stuff. Who would like to read verse number 4 for us?
Rabbi. Okay.
No,
Okay,
go ahead,
Fidel.
Akarei, Hakoto, et Sihon, Melech ha-Emori, Asher, Yosef, Bekeshbon, Ve'et Og, Melech ha-Bashan, Asher Yosef, Be'ashtarot, Be'ed Rei.
Okay, good. Yoshev, good. And Hakoto, good. Okay. So let's see. Let's jump in and translate this all together. So acharei, what's acharei mean?
After.
After.
Sir?
Hakoto. Hakoto is a little bit trickier. Does anybody understand what's happening with Hakoto?
Equals to strike.
That's right. That's right. Well, you recognize it. Very good. So what's the verb? What's the root?
Naka.
Yep, nacha.
The
Hipil.
Yes.
Hipil.
Nice.
Perfect.
Nice. Good. So it's nacha. And look what happened. The noon, he went inside here. That's a dagesh. And the hey has actually changed into a tav so that we could put a suffix on the end, right? So when you have a verb that's ending in a hey, just like with nouns, if the hey is still around, we change it to a tav before we put on the suffix. And sister, how did you know that it was hifil? By the way, very good, Yomar. Sister, how did you know it was?
Because in the format of Hipil imperfect should be patak. And then the dagesh on cap there is the assimilation of noun.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, does anybody else see kind of that? That's good. That's good. Although some others can have the patach there too, but that's still good. Is there anything else that you see here? Maybe something more obvious, easier to see than what you noticed.
The tab change, as you have mentioned, the tab from hey drop into tab.
Did you mention the hey prefix? Maybe I missed you saying that.
Yes,
oh, okay,
sir.
so you're exact.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
I'm sorry. I must have zoned out that person. You're exactly right. So good. So sisters mentioned, she mentioned the hey prefix here. That tells us that this is hifil, right? Although you can't always count on this because there are some forms of nifal that start with a hey, which you guys have learned. So thank you, Dikoy. Very good. So this is our hint in this case. Does anybody know what the verbal form is? What the grammatical form is of the verb here? It's a bit trickier.
Causative, active.
Okay, you're right. You're right. That's exactly what the hifil does. But I mean, is it perfect? Is it imperative? Is it imperfect? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Well, what is this guy?
Imperfect.
Infinitive absolute.
Yes, very good. Stop.
Imperfect.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Infinitive absolute. That is the form of this guy right here.
Oh, thank you.
Just like in Psalms 103, like Hagoel, the one who redeems your life, the healer, something like that. That's a hey form in the infinitive absolute.
Well, you're close. In the example you gave from the Psalm, I'm going to write it up here, okay? Hagoel. This is actually, in this case, I don't know if it's defective hole in there or not. It might be written this way. You might just have it there. But anyway, the Hagoel, this is actually a active participle.
Oh, sorry.
But I'm glad you're thinking about it. Still good. And so the ha, you got it right. In that case, the ha is like asher, isn't it, right? The one who does that, right? Asher. Very nice. Good. Okay, that's still good. You're thinking like that. Okay. So this is after he struck, right? He struck. Okay. Or he caused to be smitten, right? He caused to smite. Okay. Who did he cause to get smitten? Et Sichon.
Sihon.
Yeah. Melech HaEmori. King of the Emori, the Amorites, right? Asher Yoshev. Now, pay close attention to this one. Please give me the right time in English. Translated in English with the right time added. Asher Yoshev. Asher? No time in this one. Asher?
Who
Who? Yoshev Becheshbon. What's that mean?
dwells in his
Nope.
Heshbon.
Nope. Get the time right. Yoshev Becheshbon.
Yeshiv, the
Yeshiv,
dweller.
who dwells?
Dweller.
No.
The one who dwells?
Well, do you active participle dwelling?
But active participle
Yoshev.
doesn't tell you the time, does it? Only in modern
Yes.
Hebrew, right?
Yes,
It's been
sir.
corrupted to have a time.
Dwelling.
Well, look, we have the hint is the first word in the verse. Look at the very first word in the verse. Acharei. After, right? So we're talking about a
After.
past event.
After these things.
Yeah. So
Yes.
now how would you translate Asher Yoshev Becheshbon?
Who used to dwell
Yeah,
in
who used to dwell, who dwelled.
Heshbon.
Exactly. Did you guys get that? You get that? It's
Yes,
a little
sir.
bit tricky, isn't it? So who dwelled, I would say, who dwelled or used to dwell. Because he's dead now. He's not dwelling. Hakato, he's struck. He's been smitten, right? He's been smacked. He got the smackdown. So Sichon Melech HaEmori, who dwelled in
Oh, I
Heshbon.
see.
See, got it? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
But that's good. I'm actually glad.
He's not dwelling anymore because he died.
Yeah, he's dead. That's right, exactly. But this is good. Because this lets us focus on this issue again. To be careful, especially since I know one of you studied modern Hebrew, lived in the land, right? So don't get tricked by this. An active participle does not tell you the time. Only the context tells you the time, because this is actually like a verbal adjective, right? It's actually an adjective that's modifying melech. Right? Melech, right? If you think about it. Or in this case, more specifically, it's Asher that's being modified. Who Yoshev. Okay? Everybody with me? It's good. We're wrestling with some complicated syntax stuff. That's good. You're getting exposed. The eighth Og Melech Habashan. And what's that?
And Og, another.
Yeah. And so look what's really cool here. So here, the infinitive absolute, this verb here, he's got one et right here, and he has another et over here. Right? This verb is doing double duty. Right? It's telling us who got struck over here and who got struck over here. So Og, king of Bashan. Can anybody in this first part of the verse that we've read so far, translated so far, find me a construct chain?
Yes.
Just shout it out.
Og Melech Bashan.
Yep, that's one. Good. Actually, not Og, just Melech Habashan. Very good. So why can Og not be part of it? Why would that be problematic if Og would be part of it?
Because he's a dweller also.
Definite noun
Yes.
in a
Very
context.
good, Naomi.
Proper
That's
noun.
right, because a proper noun is always definite, right? And we cannot put any of the words that are in the construct state into a definite form. They only get their definiteness from the last word, right? In this case, Habashan, right? So you cannot put a person's name or a place name in the construct chain except as the last part, right? So here we have our Habashan, like the Bashan, like we might say the Philippines or the Ukraine, like some regions they can get the, right? Okay. So Og, the king, right? It gets its the, I should have, sorry, put my arrow here. The king of Bashan. And you guys remember Bashan? What is Bashan if we do our little linguistic thing? A be, remember this lesson? The be is very close to a pe, isn't it, right? A P sound linguistically? P. And sheen, oftentimes Hebrew sheen, sh, when we come into Aramaic or other Canaanite languages, it becomes a th, right? Do you remember this little teaching? So Bashan becomes
Batan.
Bathan, crack. Bathan, which then becomes, in English, something like Python. Like a python, right? So he was the king of the serpents area. And that region is actually where the extra biblical literature records that a lot of supernatural wicked stuff happened with the Nephilim. So it's very interesting. And of course, Og, we're told the size of his bed because he's such a giant, right? So he, of course, is one of the Rephaim or the Nephilim, one of these various giant clans. So as was Sichon, right? Okay, great. So where's another construct change?
Melech HaEmori.
Nice. I'm not going to put the line on the bottom. It's clear enough, right? Melech HaEmori. And that's the king of the Amorites, right? Then we have our nice little ha here. If it will let me. What's the change? I didn't get to search a whole lot, but I still can't find how to keep it from changing. Why did you go back to blue? I tell you what, by the time we go through the Nach together, I'm going to be so good with the slides. It's not going to be changing like this and stuff. We'll get it really good. Okay, good. The king of the Amorites. Nice. Although it's kind of weird that there's the ha there, right? Because Amorites, it's already. Oh, I guess you could say an abstract plural noun. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Okay, good. Let's continue. Asher Yoshev. Okay, so now we're talking about Og. What does Asher Yoshev mean?
Question.
Oh, go for it.
Question. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. I don't know. Amorite. The Amorite, is that considered a proper noun or?
Yeah, I was actually going through that thought process in myself, in my mind there. That Amorite.
And Bashan.
Yeah, and that Amorite. Yeah, it's. I think what's happening is because these are like they're not like city-states; they're actual regions. For example, the Ukraine. Even in English, we say the Ukraine because for a long time it wasn't an independent area. It was ruled by the Kingdom of Sweden, and then it was ruled by the Tsar, Russian Tsar. It was ruled by the Germans, and so even though now it's their own country, in recent years, in the international front, they have filed to no longer be called the Ukraine in English. Technically, it's no longer right. It has to just be Ukraine because they are a country in their own right. Right? I'm not sure if that's what happened with the Philippines. If Philippines, because of the 7,107 islands at low tide, if that's why it's the Philippines because it's kind of like this collective region. Anyway, I think there's something similar going on here. I'm just theorizing. I think that's why Bashan it's a region rather than like a city-state, right? So Bashan. So I think that's why they would say the Bashan, right? Like today, for example, even in Hebrew, we don't just say Golan, we say HaGolan. It's the Golan, right? Meaning that whole region, that whole area where all the things that are part of the Golan are happening. So I think really, in the case of Emori, it's maybe not a proper noun. With Bashan it is, but HaBashan just became part of the name, right? We saw this also elsewhere recently. We saw the place Haramatayim. Oh wait, maybe that was in the Nach. Haramatayim we see also, right? The high places, the two high places, it comes as Ha Ramatayim also. So I think really what happened is you have this progression. When you have a general collective place, people used to say Ha, right? Like the location over there, just like we do in English. And then when it became more specifically like a proper noun, the Ha just became part of the name. You see? It just became part of the name. Yeah, in general. I think that's what happened. Yeah, so again, I'm just kind of
Great.
fastballing here, right? I could be wrong on this, but I think that makes sense. But that's what happened. Okay, good question. Okay, so what does Asher Yoshev, the Ashtaroth mean? It's talking about
Who dwelt.
yeah, who dwelt. Again, see?
Who
Good,
dwelt.
good. So we have the same. We're also putting past tense here. So just remember, there's no tense implied by Yoshev. It's just in English to make it sound right. Asher Yoshev. So here the noun is Asher. The relative pronoun is acting as the noun there. Yoshev is the adjective. So he's actually modifying this guy. Okay. Okay. The Ashtaroth at Ashtaroth be'evai. Good. Okay. Let me see if I had some note I wanted to share on this.
Rabbi,
Yes.
can I ask?
Please.
So the HaEmori is not a proper noun.
Yeah, Emori.
It's like a Amorite. It's like a people,
Yeah,
or
I think it might even be that the Amorites was maybe like a coalition of various peoples that came together, kind of like we find with Midian. The Midianites were not. They also were not a people. It was like a confederation of like people groups who lived there, and so I think that's why. Does that make sense?
yes, yes, Rab. So I read about the
Oh yeah,
Hayebusi,
the
the
Jebusites. Yeah.
Jebusite,
Uh-huh.
Hakkiti.
Yeah.
Yes. So these are king of the Amorites.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
But
you, Rab.
but
Thank
but
you.
I'm only basing this on analogy by analogy, right? So I could be wrong on this. Yeah, I could be wrong. It might in some places it might technically be treated as proper, in other places not. But I'm basing it on the analysis of analogy to the Midianites, right? So since we see Midianites being confederation, I think it makes sense with the Amorites too. Okay. So if you find out later that some other text is something else, then I reserve the right to be wrong on this one. Okay. All right. Okay, so there's an interesting comment by Nachmanides regarding this region, the Ashtaroth, the Edrei. He says that the Ed.
Rabbi,
Go ahead.
can I comment?
Sure.
Concerning about that verse, according to the Rabbi, says that the Jews should not fear to enter the Canaanites. What happened to the Amorites? They defeated the Amorites. It tells them that they should not fear.
Okay, good. Yeah, we already beat a giant, so what's the problem, right? To come back and say we were like, that's what happened before, to say we were like grasshoppers in their eyes, i.e. there are giants in the land, but we got a giant, right? We beat this guy, we beat these guys, so yeah, I like that. Thanks, Tom. So Nachmanides chimes in that this place, that the Edrei, that it was like Ashtaroth Karnaim, that it's actually the place where Og and his family came from. Because there's another place in the text when we're introduced to Og, that it tells us not directly here that he's Melech Habashan, but that he was Melech Labashan, right? That he was a king to the region, right? And the rabbis infer that means he wasn't the lawful king. He's actually from somewhere else. He just happened to be able to. The people put their trust in him because he's so big, right? Look at that big guy. Let him rule us. So I know that's kind of interesting. And there's also an interesting comment from Sforno. Sforno says that Moshe waited to say all of this stuff, these things to the Israelis. He waited until they had actually reached a safe place in a settled land, right? So he's kind of going to debrief them now, right? They're in a little safe pocket. There's not war hanging over them, looming over them right now. So it's kind of an interesting take on it, I think. And this Ashtaroth, this place here, Ashtaroth, this we actually have again. This is spoken of in the book of Yehoshua, where it says Ugavul Og Melech Bashan, in the border of Og, the king of Bashan. Miyeteh HaRephaim, the one who was from the extras, the survivors from the Rephaim, which is a giant tribe. Hayoshev, who dwelled at Ashtaroth Uve'avei, that he's there. So, and we have a couple other places in Joshua where he's referred to. So in Ashtaroth, in Edrei is kind of the spin that we're getting from Joshua. That in Ashtaroth, in Edrei, quite literally, that this was a place in Edrei. And also Septuagint and the Peshitta and some other ancient versions, they also understand that Ashtaroth was a subsection of Edrei. Okay, all right. Any other questions, comments before we go to verse 5?
Shalom.
Shalom.
Regarding giants,
Yes.
I found this article, the giant they're establishing, which will be launched to 21 cities. When we research the height, it's the same height as um the statute which King Nebuchadnezzar built during his time. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that, but that would make sense because the Babylonians actually attributed their great success to they have a different name for the mixed race, the mixed god demigods with humans. They call them what do they call them? The Hapkalu, the Hapkalu? I can't think of the name right offhand, but that basically they have the same story. They say that the reason we're successful is because these lower level gods, they came down from heaven, they mixed with our women, and they taught us how to fight well, they taught us warfare, and so they kind of give a different spin from the Bible. They are the heroes in Babylon, right? The Nephilim, what we call the Nephilim, you know, the from Aramaic Nephila, giant, or some say Hebrew Nafal, to fall, like the fallen ones, possibly. That these guys are the guys who helped us, right? So it would make sense to me if we found what you're saying, a statue of Nebuchadnezzar, that he's actually, you know, he's got the extra height. Maybe he himself was a descendant from one of these. It's possible. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh is
This
1/3
one is
Nephilim.
this
Go ahead.
this one looks. This one
Anunnaki.
is electronically.
Sorry, it's the Anunnaki. I can't remember what they go.
Electron.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This one is electronically. This one is electronically. This one moves electronically, or it it copies, like it has. They said that it also has wisdom, or can talk, or can copy the other giants or historic people in history. You may just Google it.
I'm not sure. I'm not really understanding what you're saying. You're saying that the statue that Nebuchadnezzar built, that it has some property. Is that what you're saying?
No, they created
Jay?
a modern giant, the giant, which will come into 21 cities of the United States. It's as big as the one Nebuchadnezzar did during his time. And it looks like an AI, but it's that big as a giant.
I think we're missing some details. Sounds interesting. Maybe you can forward the article to the group. Yeah, I'm having
Just like a giant robot,
like a giant robot or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like
A
Voltes
giant
5.
robot.
Okay. Well, I think there's a good chance that the intelligence, the evil intelligence that's spoken of in Revelation, I think there's a good chance that could be AI. It might actually be, because what's interesting is, you know, the whole thing about the mark of man. I gotta mute you guys, the dog. The mark of man, you know, 666 being the number of man, all that stuff. It makes me think that maybe it's something that we create in our image, right? Like God created us to be His imager, and we create something to be our imager. Maybe this could be AI, right? And we're already seeing some examples of this with Google, like my friend Dr. Dwayne from Matsadi.com. He found some of his website seems to get hit by some Google algorithms to suddenly, it was doing really great, gets lots of numbers, then suddenly boom, like it'll just take a nosedive, right? And so, you know, and as I have found with with the YouTube, right, being shadow banned or whatever, we're starting to see that these algorithms, which is kind of the basis for an artificial intelligence, these computer algorithms, well, they are in the image of the crafter, right? Like if I make an algorithm, if I tell a computer program to behave a certain way, to process emails or whatever, I'm the one that gives it the intelligence. I'm the one that tells it this is bad, this is good, right? I'm the one who tells it what is quote unquote evil, right? And we're living in the days when men will call what is evil good and what is good evil, then surely you can see how an AI that is programmed by, most programmers are leftists, liberals, right? So, except in the defense industry, but even there we're getting some. So you could certainly see how it could, like you said, you can end up having a robot or whatever, you know, as long as it's got this wicked AI that has, it's got this thought process that is in the image of man rather than being in the image of God, then for sure you can see some nice biblical parallels there. I'm not saying it definitely is. This is just a possibility. So yeah, so thanks for mentioning that. That's interesting, Jane. Okay, anybody else have something you want to comment on here on verse 4? Or any of the previous verses we had? Okay, all right, let's continue to the next verse then.